What is up, Raveraide fam? Welcome to another episode of the Raveraide podcast with your host, Tyler Hardie. And as always, I just want to take a moment to express my overwhelming love and gratitude to each and every single one of you guys who tune in on a daily and weekly basis to talk about all things Raveraide, self-improvement, spirituality, everything that we talk about on this podcast with the main intention to help you become the most self-loved and self-actualized version of yourself that you can possibly be. So that way you can express and share your gifts with the world, and that way we can make the world a better place for all. So, hopping into today's episode, what I want to talk about is fear. And I want to talk about what happens when we allow ourselves to, be subjugated to fear, essentially. And so, what I mean by that is when we allow ourselves to connect to fear and worry and anxiety and become chemically addicted to our own suffering, it disconnects us from seeing all the potentials and possibilities in our life and things that are going on around us and these opportunities that we have at all times to improve our life. When we get stuck in those lower paradigms and those lower, in our lower chakras, and we're getting stuck in what ifs and hypothetical scenarios and irrational fears and all these things that really aren't, conducive for a high quality existence, we, create from that space. And as a result of that, we get a lot of the things that we don't desire in our life. And I want to help unpack that. I want to help explain, some of my personal life experiences and things that shaped a lot of my personality and identity and way of being prior to doing a lot of the, deep healing and work and things that I really focus on a daily basis, because I know that once we heal ourselves, everything around us follows suit. And so really the only work that you're really here to do in this lifetime is just to heal yourself, to heal your body, to heal your mind, to heal your spirit. So then that way you're able to, really live life the way it was intended to be lived, not the life that the majority of, the people that live on this planet live currently at this time. And so let's talk about some things that, to start off the podcast, that increase your likelihood of living in fear or being stuck in a lower frequency, because there's a lot of things on this planet that contribute to that. And I'll explain some of the things that I believe put me there and kept me there. And so to really start off, I'd say like a lot of it starts off in your childhood. It starts off in your early developmental years because, the way you're taught by your parents. So first off, parental teachings, that's going to be the main thing, or one of the main things is you become a carbon copy in a lot of ways of your parents. So if your parents are, like, for example, my mom lived in a lot of fear, and as a result of that, we picked up a lot of those qualities and personality habits and traits that carried into my early 20s. And I noticed, like, she was always worried about everything going wrong. She was always worried about what was going on in the world, the news, what's going on. And as a result of that, she lived in this paradigm of fear of there being lack, there being scarcity, of everything that we're programmed to believe in this lifetime. She embodied that. She accepted that as truth. She allowed that to come into her subconscious mind and become truth, and then it began to manifest as such. And it's just important to know that, your brain does work like a computer, and you should be the only one programming it. You can take information from others that you feel is true and resonates for you, and then you can, integrate that into your day-to-day life. But it's super important to know that you should be the main one programming your mind. And so parental, figures are definitely going to be a huge causation for you being stuck in fear, because we're not born into fear. We're not born into anxiety. We're not born into worry. We're not born into lack. Those things are all taught things, which the good thing about that is if it's taught, then it can be unlearned, and you can give yourself an upgrade mentally. You can give yourself a consciousness upgrade at any given point in your life if you're willing to take a look at the truth and really break down and unpack, why those things have created the results that you've been getting in your life on a day-to-day basis. And so I think that's one for sure. Since we're on the topic of like early developmental years, when we're brought into this lifetime, without getting too far into it, like there's a lot of trauma that's induced right when we're born. And so that really sets the vibrational, focal point or starting point for, our life experience. So I've had meditations where I've like went back and I had this feeling of like being born for the first time into this body. And, there's a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with that happen right when you're born, in regards to, things that happen right as you're born, if you follow what I'm saying. And so as a result of that, it kind of sets this vibrational tone of like pain, especially for boys, right when they're born. And I think that can definitely have a lingering effect because our bodies store memories. It restores, trauma. It stores pain. It stores, experiences, and then that sets the vibrational tone for what we experience. So even just consciously going back and acknowledging the fact that there's a chance that right as you were born there was some sort of trauma or pain that was inflicted on your body that you may not have been conscious of, but it definitely still stores in the body whether we are conscious of it or not. And so those things are really important. Traumas are going to be a big thing as well. I think trauma probably would be the main thing. Early developmental, I think a lot of people carry around a lot more trauma than they realize. And when you don't heal those traumas, it ends up, projecting outward into your adult life, and you project it onto others. You project it onto people that matter to you, and you don't even realize that you're doing it because it's been essentially been your way of being since the time that you were born. And it's important that you take accountability for that and you unpack those things, so then that way other people don't have to experience the byproduct of your unconsciousness or your traumas that you've experienced, or the ego and identity that's been created as a subsequent result of not being able to handle those traumas and those pains. And one thing that I've really noticed over the past year and a half, 2 years, is me unpacking and actually being willing to look at the things that caused a lot of the pain and trauma and suffering that was continuing to manifest in my life. When I started looking at those things, I realized like how much of an impact that was making on people who had nothing to do with that experience, because it affects every single person that you interact with, because it's your way of being. And unpacking that and taking accountability, even though the trauma may not have been, my fault necessarily, right? It could have been from the actions and choices of others. I was still carrying that around, and as a result of that, it was affecting my current relationships and diminishing those. And that's something I don't want for you. I want you to be in a place where you're able to really, have joyous, abundant, thriving relationships that are, open, connected, and vulnerable and safe. And I think that in a lot of ways, like, we allow trauma to keep us from that, because what happens when we have trauma is, I've talked about this in other episodes, is we have fragmentation of consciousness. So imagine when something happens to you, like a traumatic experience. I'll give you an example for myself. When I almost died when I was 8 years old, had to have, an emergency surgery to have my appendix removed, and then I got an infection, and the doctor had to rip me open while I was wide awake. I remember all of those things. And after that point, now that I've really recollected a lot on my life, I see how there was like a gap in my consciousness. I don't really remember from like 8 to 10 years old that much. And I realized that when something traumatic happens, we have that fragmentation of consciousness, which is a piece of yourself, fight or flights, and a piece of your identity stays in that moment. And I started realizing that after that point happened, I was kind of getting babied more, by people because, of what happened and everything. And then I created an identity of being a victim, because being a victim got more attention. Being a victim got me more of what I wanted and what I desired. And unpacking that as of recently, within the past couple of years, has made me realize like how much of that energy I brought into every single relationship that I had, into my jobs, into my, passions and careers, my, fear of actually pursuing what was important to me, or speaking my truth, or doing what I knew that I needed to do, as a subsequent result of that. So fragmentation of consciousness due to trauma is a huge thing, and that creates fear, right? The fear of almost dying, or the fear of losing someone, or the fear of losing your health, or whatever it is that you've experienced, whatever your traumas have been, or being abused or sexually assaulted, or whatever it is that you've experienced, whatever trauma that you've had, like you create an identity, because an 8-year-old's not going to be able to consciously process what had happened. So it creates this identity of needing to feel safe and protected, and so by any means it will go and do whatever it has to do to create that experience and create that level of safety, even though as you get older, it may have served its purpose at that time, but as you get older, you start to see how it's hindering the quality of your, adult life, and how it is shaping your relationships, and causing, less than ideal outcomes in a lot of ways. And so breaking that down, working through our conscious traumas, and really working through those pieces and lost pieces of yourself, and bringing those pieces back and taking the gifts out of them and actually assimilating all of those things into becoming a more actualized version of yourself is really important. But what I'm getting at, to kind of get back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, is the fear component of it. When that vibrational experience happens and you don't deal with it, what ends up happening is we stuff it down, we numb, we disassociate from reality, we check out, we avoid, which is a common pattern that I see in pretty much almost every single person that I know, and in varying degrees, is disassociation from reality, or checking out, especially with how many things are available to us in the world: substances, phone, social media, food, you name it, pleasurable activities, things that raise dopamine levels. And so, it's important to go back and get to the core root of that experience and actually be at peace with it. So then that way, that piece of yourself can come back. And when I say that piece of yourself, it can be a mindset or a belief, or it could just be literally physical energy that you gain because your mind is more clear, and you're in your higher faculties. So in that way, you're actually able to make logical decisions that aren't fear-based, because that fear of almost dying, or that fear of lack of safety, in a lot of ways has resulted in like very unstable years in my life, because I didn't deal with those traumas. I didn't recognize that I was carrying them with me, and I was experiencing them on such a deep level still, because we think as time passes it just kind of goes away. And if we don't at least take the time to consciously, recollect and acknowledge what's actually going on and what we've experienced, then there still needs to be work that needs to be done. So I want you to ask yourself, like, is there anything that you're carrying that's keeping you stuck in a lower vibrational frequency of fear? And, that answer may not pop up right away. But one thing I will say is that when you ask those type of questions, when you ask quality questions to the universe, it will show you. And so being able and willing to stand in your power and stand up to that fear and the thing that's been keeping you stuck in those limiting patterns is going to be, the bravest thing that you'll ever do. But also on top of that as well, it's going to be the most liberating thing that you ever do in your life as well. And it's such a beautiful thing that we should all get to experience, for ourselves, for our family, for our significant others, for our children. So then that way they don't become the byproduct of your unhealed consciousness and trauma. So it's really important that we, consciously look at those things and really get to the bottom of them. And they're not as scary as you think. One thing I've really realized as of late over the past, few months is that, the only thing that is to be feared is fear itself. And we only fear things that we don't know and we don't understand. Once we gain, the light around a certain subject matter or a certain circumstance or situation, or being able to place meaning on why something happened the way that it did, then we're able to see the value and the gift inside of it. And as a result of that, you no longer fear those things. You no longer fear, communicating with others, or money, or taking good care of your health, whatever the situation is. Like, you don't fear those things. We don't fear what we know. We only fear what we don't know. When we don't know something is when we fear it, when we avoid it. So when we don't know how to heal our traumas, when we don't know how to, objectively look at situations that defined us and cause us to create identity and ego, that's when we start to have issues. That's when we start to, become complacent or disassociative and avoidant of what it is that's keeping us stuck in predictable patterns. So it's just really important to know that by looking at that fear consciously, it's going to help free you. It's going to help liberate you in so many ways. And I can speak firsthand on this. I don't think that this doesn't apply to a single person on this planet. The more that we're willing to look at the truth, the more that we're willing to look at things objectively and in a healthy way, without allowing our emotions to overtake us and cause us to fight or flight, then we're going to start seeing rapid changes and paradigm shifts towards something towards what we're really meant to be, towards what we're really meant to experience as a collective, and individually. And so that's a few of those things. Now let's talk about things that on a day-to-day basis keep us stuck in lower vibrational patterns of fear and worry and anxiety. What are you consuming? And this isn't just food. This is, what are we consuming with our media? What are we consuming with other people? What are we consuming, in regards to like balancing our hormones and not allowing our feel-good chemicals to be overused and abused? Like, all these different things can keep us stuck in lower vibrational patterns, starting with food, right? So I realized that I had this really gnarly negative feedback loop, because for those of you that, are new to this podcast or don't know me very well, I weighed about 110 pounds more than I do right now, only like 4 or 5 years ago. And it was because when I had all these things that were going on that I was avoiding and disassociating from, and then having examples of most people in my family being very unhealthy people, that seemed like the thing to do. Not even logical, because I wasn't thinking about it, I was unconsciously doing it. And it was one of those things where I was using it as a coping mechanism and a soothing mechanism to control, something. I couldn't control what was going on outside of me, or I didn't believe that I could. And so as a result of that, being able to eat and eat and eat and eat, I was pushing down my emotions. I was letting unworthiness, manifest itself, and self-hate manifest itself through my physical body becoming overweight and damaged. And so what I'm getting at here is, when you can't deal with something, it usually represses and shows itself in another area of life. And so it's really important to know that being stuck in a fear paradigm, there's a good chance that you're consuming things that are causing you physically to be stuck and be dense and be heavy, like literally vibrationally heavy, and it manifests as physical density, right? And so food's a huge thing. Avoiding highly inflammatory foods, avoiding the natural flavors, avoiding gluten, avoiding things that cause inflammation in the body, because it creates a nasty feedback loop. When we become inflamed, we don't want to move. When we don't want to move, we start to disassociate and check out. We start to have more screen time. We start to, lay around and not do anything. We stop exercising. We start gaining weight. When we start gaining weight, we don't want to move. And then this creates this downward spiral of things. And so it's about getting back to the root cause here. And so becoming highly aware of the foods that you eat is going to be very important. And I don't think that there's a perfect diet for one person or the other. And I think that's what one issue with, what we consume, right, on social media is, like, there's a lot of people that are very polarizing, and they do that on purpose to, get views, to get people to subscribe to what they're doing. And some of them probably have a lot of really good merit, and they have a lot of really good things that they're sharing with people. And so, you see this in the spectrum of diets, right? You have the vegans, you have the carnivores, you have the paleos, you have all these different people, right? Where it's like, why do you have to label yourself? Why can't you be what feels right to you? Because there's days when, it makes sense for me to eat all meat. There's days when it's like, oh, I, want to eat more plant-based and something lighter, and it's just not about putting yourself into a box. And it's really important to make sure that you find what works for you. And so taking good care of your diet is important. Taking good care of the water that you consume is very, very, very important, because we're mostly water. And if we have water that's got, fluoride and all these different things in it, what's going to happen as a result of that? It's going to break down our body. It's going to break down our fractal geometry. It's going to break down, our chakra system. It's going to break down our entire system. And when our system's not working correctly, we can't live in our higher faculties. We're going to feel displaced. We're going to feel disconnected. We're going to feel, a lot of anxiety, worry, depression, fear, anger, all the lower vibrational frequencies as a result, because that's, the status quo of what's going on the planet, which it doesn't have to be that way. It's a personal choice through the decisions that you make. And so it's just important to know that, you're consuming good water. It's really, really important. And so, I don't drink most water. Ideally, if you're in a place where you're able to do such, having a reverse osmosis machine with a Kangen water system, it's probably going to give you the absolute best drinking water that you can have on the planet. But that's if you're able to do so. If not, there's other options. One, I think personally, like, my favorite water to drink that's not, of that is probably going to be Fiji water. I think that it's got a lot of silica in it. It's got a lot of, natural electrolytes and minerals, things like that, right? And so it's important to make sure we're consuming quality water. And it's interesting. I had this thought the other day. I was like, I know these things, and I've spent the time to really get an idea for what I should and shouldn't do. But then I look around and I see people consuming so much crap, you know what I mean? And it's just because they just don't know, unconscious unawareness of like what they're actually putting in their body, and they don't realize like how much they're numbing themselves out and keeping themselves from a greater potential, just by these small habits and things that they're doing. And so that kind of leads me into another thing that I'm very passionate about, and a big reason why we have Raveraide, right, is like I do not stand for anything that goes on with like these high stimulant drinks. I'm going to tell you right now that calmness is the superpower. It is not being overstimulated and jacked up on caffeine. The reason we have so many people have so many health problems nowadays is because their adrenal glands are absolutely shot as a result of constantly putting stimulants in their body, constantly drinking coffee with all this sugar in it, which is messing with your dopamine system. It's messing with your adrenal system. It's causing you to chemically alter the way that your brain functions, which is causing you as a result to become addicted. You become addicted to dopamine, which as a result of that causes you to be addicted to your screen, causes you to be addicted to drama and challenge and suffering in a lot of ways. And these are just things that I've noticed, through my personal experience. If this resonates for you, then great. If it doesn't, then that's totally okay as well. But I've noticed these really big feedback loops and of cause and effect, of one thing leads to another. And the inverse is true as well. You can have what's called an upward spiral as well. So I don't want you to think like there's only downward spirals. You can compound great things to bring yourself to a greater level of health as well. So it's just one of those things that comes down to personal choice. But going back to it, like the whole, energy drink market, the whole, coffee. I don't really believe in coffee. I used to love coffee, but I realized that was keeping me stuck in a lower vibrational frequency. Because one, I believe that it messes with your heart in a number of ways, physically, but also energetically. I feel like it causes constriction in your heart, and I think a lot of people live with constricted hearts in regards to like their energetic self, and it keeps people from living in their heart. We're very, very heart disconnected, especially here in the Western, United States or Western states. We're very mind dominant, right? Everything is up here. It's all about thinking, overthinking, and all these different things. And it's about bringing coherence between your heart and your mind that allows you to live in your higher faculties. So I'm obviously really big against all of those things, and we have intentions to make massive changes in that space with what we can do here at Raveraide. And the products that we make, we don't use stimulants, we use nootropics, because we want to give your brain the foods that it needs to, carry out, high frequency activities on a daily basis without destroying, your dopamine or destroying your adrenal glands as a result of that. We want to give you health. We don't want to take it away from you. And so that consuming of, things that are really unhealthy, and then, you start getting into things like, nicotine, or you start getting into these things that are synthetic chemicals. Synthetic chemicals will lower your frequency more than anything. And I know this firsthand. I speak about all these things because I've experienced them myself. And, I was addicted to nicotine for a while. I was addicted to coffee. I was addicted to, prescriptions, like stimulants, stuff like that. Like, it's one of those things where I've done everything, under the sun, aside from, really harsh things. And, it keeps you stuck. It keeps you in fight or flight. It keeps you feeling speedy and racy. It keeps you from being able to tap in and observe reality for what it really is, as a calm, beautiful, constantly flowing mechanism that we can tap into and actually create with, as opposed to against. And I think a lot of people are swimming up against the current of life when they could just, swim with life and create something much greater than what they think that they can create from a limited place of ego and self-identity. And so it's really important to know, like, I'll say this again, like, calmness is the superpower. Being embodied is the superpower. Being heart-centered is the superpower. It's not being jacked up on stimulants and becoming chemically reliant upon these things just to function. There's plenty of research to indicate that there's a lot of ingredients that are in a lot of these energy drinks that are well documented and known to cause chemical addiction. There's so many things that we can become chemically addicted to. substances, foods, all these different things, and even our own suffering, and even our own, drama that we have in our life. I've seen people who become chemically addicted to hate. They become chemically addicted to suffering. They become chemically addicted to their own pain, worry, and fear because it's so normalized in their body that they keep replicating it with new people and new experiences. I caught myself in numerous occasions being worried about nothing and catching myself being worried about nothing, just worrying to worry. And that's when we start tapping into, higher levels of consciousness through our meditation. We become the observer of our reality, which as a result of that puts us in a place where, we see like, oh, wow, I'm the causation for this. I'm addicted to my own suffering. I'm addicted to, the cortisol. I'm addicted to the adrenaline and all these different things that, floods our body when we feel lower vibrational frequencies of hate, anger, and fear, or worry, or anxiety. You become addicted to your own suffering over time without even realizing that you're doing it. And, we focus on helping you break free, through all the things that we put into the Ascended Raver program. Those things help with that. It's about gaining higher levels of consciousness and awareness, so that way we can break these patterns that we live individually and, as a collective. So that way we can actually get this planet fixed and healed, because it needs some work. It needs you. It needs the best version of you. And so, aside from that, we start looking at, what foods we're consuming and things we're consuming. Fix that, and that'll help a lot, massively. Right? Then we start clearing up our channels, taking good care of our gut, taking good care of our heart, taking good care of our mind, and then we start seeing, how much we were damaging ourselves by doing the things that are customary by our society, which is not healthy. Our society is not healthy as a whole, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, because people are lost. They need guidance. They need love. They need help. They need companies that actually care about their well-being, so then that way they can, have trust and confidence that the products that they're using actually adding to their health and not detracting from it. And that's why we do the things we do here at Raveraide. We do them in a very meticulous way, because I do not and will not have our name on a product that is damaging people's health, because then we would be contributing to the problem. We're here to be the opposite of the problem. We're here to be the thing that helps people heal and gain more awareness, so then that way they know what is and isn't good for them. And so, what else are you consuming? How much are you consuming on your phone? Who are you consuming on your phone? What news are you consuming? What information are you taking in? These are very important questions. It's about what we're consuming. The most valuable real estate in the world is 6 inches between your ears. The real estate physically is not the most valuable, asset. The most valuable asset is how much attention can they get from you? Can companies get from you? Can tech get from you? They're all fighting for your eyeballs. They're all fighting for your mind. But what's cool though is there's a lot of really good information out there. So not looking at like, oh, they're just, trying to program me. No, it's your job to have the discernment and awareness to choose consciously what it is that you're consuming on a daily basis. Because there's plenty of incredibly valuable people that are on the internet that want to see the world be a better place, that want to see us heal as a collective and fix all the problems that we have on this planet. There's a lot of people that are doing that. I think there's a lot of people that were sent here to do that their whole mission and purpose of being alive is to do that. And so it's about finding those people. It's about sharing those people with others. It's about making those people the main focal point of what you're consuming. So in that way you can learn from those people in whatever way it serves you. And you go to the next person. You go to the next person. Before you know it, you become a pretty special, remarkable human yourself. Through using logic and deductive reasoning, you start picking up all the things that are truth and start compounding that into your day-to-day life. And before you know it, you become exceptional. Maybe you have the gift. Maybe you have a valuable piece of information or insight that might help the whole world. And then you become a person who becomes a value and starts, adding to, the collective in a positive way. The more people we get doing that, the more we're going to start seeing big changes happen. That's what I want more than anything. So what are we consuming? That's going to affect our levels of fear. If you allow yourself to go into the fear, then you're going to get more of the fear. You're going to draw in what it is that you're experiencing, because like I've said in plenty of previous episodes, is you're the vibrational center point. So what your belief system is internally is what you're going to get externally. It's going to reverberate and reflect back to you. So if you live in fear, you're going to get things, you're going to find the things that affirm that belief system in that vibrational state. If you believe in love, if you believe in heart-centeredness, if you believe in positive contribution, if you believe in being the best version of yourself, the mind is also going to prove itself right. And as a subsequent result of that, you are going to find the people, places, and experiences that are going to bring that to you and affirm that belief system and help you become what it is that you're meant to become. Every single person. Life is not discriminatory. Separation is discriminatory, but we're not. Creation is not. It wants the best for each and every single one of us. It's your job to want that for yourself. And a lot of that comes down to what you're consuming, especially when it comes to our dopamine. We have this incredible chemical in our brain and body, that rewards us. It's part of our pleasure center, right? And all these foods and all these, medias and screens and blue light and all these different things, even the lights that are right in front of me for this video, it affects our dopamine system in a lot of ways. And the reason a lot of people struggle is because their dopamine's fried. Everything's sucking dopamine out of their life, and as a result of that, what that's doing is it's making everything in life seem numb and bland. And that's when I start to notice that, my dopamine is being affected more than I would like. Is like, there's no magic in life. Even though life is the most magical thing that there is, everything just seems bland and numb and, just not ideal, right? And so that consumption right there is big. Another big piece of consumption is, again, that affects your dopamine is like pornography, right? Especially for men. I think the reason that we have such weak men on this planet that are struggling with their mental health so much is because of porn addiction, because of ease of access. Right? And that keeps us stuck in lower vibrational frequencies when we're oversexed, when we don't have that vital life force energy flowing through us, then we become disconnected. We don't feel tapped in. We're not living in our higher faculties. We don't feel strong and confident and embodied. We feel numb, weak, and disassociated. There's a reason why that stuff is free. And the reason it's free is because you pay with your soul. And so it's important to know that that's not only affecting you on a spiritual level, but it's also affecting you on a physical level as well with your dopamine and the way that you view your relationships and the way you view the opposite sex and the way that you view romantic partners and all these different things. Like, it's all affected, right? And so, again, consumption. The reason that we struggle so much, especially here in the United States, is because we are so dominant in consumption, but not giving. Not sharing, not expressing. We're constantly consuming. Here, have this. Here's an ad. Here's do this. Here's that. Take this. Do this. Right? All these different things. Eat this. Like, it's just one of those things where we're constantly consuming, and we're not putting good output. We're not sharing. We're not expressing. Right? Because a lot of people are numb. They don't realize that they're so disconnected from their bodies. That's one thing that's been a huge game changer, personally, is recognizing how much of myself in regards to, my life, I was disconnected from my body. I always knew I had a body. Like, that's not what I meant. But what I mean is, like, the disconnection, because I was so mind dominant. I was always thinking. I was always disconnected due to trauma, disassociation, unwillingness to, actually heal traumas or look at things objectively. Living in fear caused me to completely check out of my life and just become the bystander of, the circumstances that were going on outside of myself. And that's how we create victim consciousness. And so, we want to help you break that down so that way you don't live that, because the world needs you empowered and embodied, making a difference right now more than ever. And so I'm trying to think of anything else that, we need to be aware of that would keep us stuck in lower vibrational frequencies. So consumption's the big issue currently, right? Don't consume things that are going to keep you stuck in fear. You think about it right now. Think about things for yourself that could keep you stuck in fear, other than what I mentioned, things that I talked about today. Really think about those things. Think about your personal schedule and your day to day, and really think about what things are keeping you stuck in that paradigm of fear, worry, anxiety, depression, disconnection, not tapping into your spiritual gifts and higher faculties. Think about those things. From what I talked about, that may have resonated for you, but also things in your personal life. Because I don't know you. And even though we're all one, I don't know exactly your life experience. You're the master of your fate and destiny because you know every small detail about yourself. And if you don't, then the first thing that you should do is nothing outside of you. You should be going inside of yourself and getting to know yourself on a very personal level, because when you do that, you start to see the truth for what it is. And once you find your truth, you can share your truth with others. You can share your truth with the world. And then you start creating consciously with creation, God, and the universe that helps put you into a place where you're actually able to create something far greater than yourself and serve something far greater than yourself. And that's when we start reaping the rewards of what the human experience is really meant to be like and what it's really intended to be as a whole for ourselves and for the collective. And so really take the time to think about that and feel into that, and think about the things that how you're keeping yourself stuck, how we keep ourselves in a prison mentally. Because I do believe that heaven and hell is just a choice, right? It's one of those things where you can create your own heaven here or you create your own hell here, and it's your choice. It's through your actions, decisions, what you're consuming, who you're around, where you place your time and energy, or where you don't place your time and energy, your discipline, the choices that you make every single day, day in and day out, how you choose to make money, how you choose to serve others. You can create the most perfect, ideal life for yourself, perfect health, all these things, or you can imprison yourself inside of your own body, which I've done those things. I've been that. And I'm telling you that I don't care where you're at, who you're from, orientation, race, doesn't matter. Today's a perfect day to get started. Today's a perfect day to heal. Today's a perfect day for you to self-actualize a gift, to heal that trauma, to look at the truth. Today's the perfect day because there is only right now. And the sooner that you realize that, the sooner that you'll start making those changes, the sooner that you're going to start living what it is that I know that you're capable of becoming. The only reason that I even do this podcast is specifically for you to self-actualize and self-love yourself to the highest degree. And I'm telling you that if I can experience the things that I've experienced in my life and get out on the other side and be what I am now and what I'm becoming, then I know that you can do the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're 18, doesn't matter if you're 35, 55, 85, it doesn't matter. You can start. Right now is a perfect time to start. It's the perfect time because there's only one time. There's only the right now. And I used to wait and I used to push and be like, oh, today's not a good day. The stars aren't aligning. My horoscope says this, blah, 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 making excuses and avoiding my own healing. And I stopped doing that. And I start realizing that there is right now, and every single moment is divinely perfect. Every single moment is divinely perfect. And it's conspiring for your greatest good. Now, the question that you need to ask yourself to wrap up this episode is, are you conspiring for your greatest good by your habits, attitude, and actions? The things that you do on a daily basis. Are you over-consuming when you could be meditating and enhancing your spiritual skills and abilities? Are you giving your energy away to people who don't deserve it, who take advantage of it, who don't value it? And as a result of that, you need to ask yourself, do you value your own energy? Because they're just reflecting back to you what you believe about yourself. Ask yourself these hard questions. Your life is a direct correlation to the quality of questions that you ask. The better the questions are, the better answers you're going to get, the more you're going to learn, the more you're going to be able to contribute. Take care of yourself, be self-reliant, become the best version of yourself. That's the key to life. That's how we become, what it is that we're meant to become, is asking the right questions and waiting for the answers to come, and not allowing ourselves to get in the way of the truth and our healing and our progression and our personal, endeavors that we have in our lifetime. It's about self-actualization. That's why I do this podcast. That's why I created Raveraide. That's why we do all the things that we do here, is because we want to be a company that actually shows people how to heal and become what it is I know that they're all capable of becoming. Whether that's healing the physical body, healing the mind, healing traumas, discovering gifts, learning the truth, seeking the right things, learning how to cope with trauma, learning how to heal from trauma, how to, put down the substances and put down, the things that are keeping us stuck in lower vibrational frequencies, and choose better for ourselves because we love ourselves, because we know that we're worth it, and so it's going to happen for you. It's happening right now. Today's the perfect day for you to heal. Today's the perfect day for you to be happy. Today's the perfect day for you to address, what you've been avoiding. Today is the perfect day. Right now is the perfect time. So I want you to take, whatever felt true to you in this episode and integrate it. Really allow yourself to integrate, because integration is the key. Incrementalism is the key. You're going to have quantum leaps at certain points and junctures, but it's about doing the right thing, step after step after step. That's how we make massive improvements. That's how we make massive gains in our life in all areas, is that incrementalism, that willingness to look at the truth, and the willingness to integrate what we're learning and apply it to our day-to-day life. Like, I want you to take the things that you learn from this that resonate for you, specifically resonate for you, and apply them into your life. So then that way you can start seeing and reaping the benefits and rewards of the time investment that you're making. You're investing your time, on this podcast, and I'm super grateful that you do. I want to make sure that I deliver the very best of the best to you at all times. So in that way you're getting the most out of that time investment that you're making. But the way that the time investment is most importantly, a net positive, is through your application. It's through your integration. It's through you taking the time and doing what you know that you need to do, what you've been avoiding, and making it happen for yourself, making it happen for what's important to you and who matters to you on a daily basis. That's when we start becoming great. That's when we start becoming exceptional. And that's when we start living in the frame of our purpose. And that way we can actually get the most out of this human experience. So without further ado, guys, my name is Tyler Hardie. To give you guys some updates on the business, I haven't podcasted in a couple weeks, and just through lack of accountability, honestly, I've just been super busy, and we've had some massive shifts in the company, things that I wasn't really planning on working on this early, but things come in perfect timing, right? Now is the perfect time for everything. And so we're working on a few different updates. I can't go too far into detail, but we've got a couple other flavors we've been testing, been working on some collaborations, been working on some updates on the packaging that are just going to help pull us more into alignment with the vision that we have for the business and for the company, because there's a lot of, again, details, right, as we keep going. And, it's important to know that, it's about knocking down some of the big things, and then you start focusing on refinement. And that's kind of part of the healing process, is you focus on the big things, and then slowly over time you start getting into the refinement phases to become excellent and exceptional. And so that's what we've been working on over the past couple of weeks, is just the things that are going to take us from really good to exceptional, to one of those things where when someone looks at our product, they just go, man, these people think of everything. They know every single thing that's important to the planet, to the people, to the world as a whole. And, we want to display our level of consciousness and love and caring that we have for everyone who supports our brand and company. And so the things we've been working on over the past few weeks are really going to pull us into that alignment, so that way around next year, when we get everything launched, like, you guys are really going to see another massive level up from us, because it never ends. It's one of those things where there's always another level of execution. There's always another level of improvement that can happen when you are open to it, and you don't get in your own way, and you don't allow ego to block you from your full potential. And so we're just upgrading over here. We're just constantly trying to get better at everything that we do. And so I appreciate every single one of you guys. I'm going to be podcasting every single day from here on out, because I realize how important it is for my development, just as much as it is for your development, to have a creative outlet that really helps me connect with more people that want to become better. So without further ado, guys, Tyler Hardie signing off. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and be sure again to integrate what you learn. So we'll talk to you soon. Peace.